Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Shinigami Eyes and today I'm going to be summarizing everything that happened in the new FNAF movie, Easter eggs hidden in the movie, and my thoughts on it as a fan of the FNAF franchise. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the plot. The movie begins with a scene of the previous Freddy Fazbear's Night Guard. He's in the security office from FNAF 1, which we can clearly tell through the security cameras and the Celebrate poster on the wall. It looks extremely accurate to the game. He's trying to unscrew a vent in the security office, a nod to the vents used in FNAF 2, 3 and Sister Location. And down the hallway we hear Foxy's Doo-Doo-Doo song, taken from the humming you can hear Foxy doing in FNAF 1. Then suddenly, the viewer is running from the attacker's point of view, knocking out the Night Guard, movie not yet showing us the animatronics. The Night Guard wakes up tied up behind a mechanical Freddy mask, filled with turning gears and sharp instruments, heading straight towards his face. We'd assume this shreds his face up, but it cuts just before that point as he's desperately trying to unscrew the hand restraints. This opening cutscene sets up some context as to where the movie will begin, and the events that led up to whatever adventure at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza we will be about to see. It's also important to note the guard's attempt at unscrewing their hand restraints, as this is foreshadowing for future events. After this fast-paced scene, the opening sequence rolls, showing us this absolutely incredible set, being incredibly accurate to the layout of FNAF 1, as electronic music plays. We can see a wall of children's drawings, the camera zooming into a drawing of a yellow rabbit with 5 children. This alluding to the backstory for the movie, as well as being recognisable to existing FNAF fans as Spring Bonnie and the 5 missing children. We can also see drawings of Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, Chica, and one drawing of Balloon Boy. After the shots of the building, the concept of this backstory is further set up through a very cool animated opening sequence, using a minigame style, looking very similar to the style of the minigames in the FNAF games. The 4 animatronics are shown, the purple guy putting on a rabbit costume and him gradually taking 5 children. This was done super well, setting the context of what aspects of the lore will be explored in the story, and again being a very recognisable lore plotline for existing fans, mirroring the stories told through the 8-bit minigames in FNAF 2 and 3. The next scene begins with a 6 AM alarm clock going off, looking and sounding like the alarm clock ending each night in FNAF 4. We are introduced to our main protagonist, Mike, who wakes up next to a book called Dream Theory, a nod to a prevalent theory amongst FNAF fans at one point. Dream Theory, that the entire franchise was a dream. He puts away a bottle of medication and the shot pans up, revealing that he has a poster of Nebraska on his ceiling. We are also introduced to his little sister Abby, who he's taking care of, as Mike struggles to convince her to get ready to go. Mike heads off to work at his security job in the mall and explains the concept of dream theory within this movie to his friend and colleague Jeremiah, as essentially like lucid dreaming, the idea of entering your dreams and of entering your memories through dreams. While at the mall, he goes to grab an ice cream, and we can see that the logo of this company is Chica's Magic Rainbow from FNAF World. Mike sees a kid being dragged away by a man, and this instantly triggers something in him. He chases after him, tackling him into the water fountain, and beats him up. However, we find out a moment later that the man was the kid's dad, meaning Mike has just lost his job. In the following scene, we are now introduced to a new character, Steve Raglan, a career counsellor who is helping Mike to find a new job. He's in the middle of telling Mike that he doesn't have a job for him considering his track record, when he sees his surname on the piece of paper. His full name, Mike Schmidt. Steve doesn't even finish saying Schmidt, and upon reading his name his demeanour changes entirely, him showing more interest in Mike and acting very strangely. He offers Mike a job at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza as the night shift security guard, him describing the job as not great and expressing a high turnover. When he mentions it being a night shift, Mike turns down the offer. Steve jumps up, not wanting him to leave, and gives him his card just in case. Following this strange interaction, Mike comes home to a notice of delinquency on his door. A notice of delinquency being a legal notification to let someone know that they have an overdue child support or another similar payment. Basically, he needs money and is growing more desperate for a job. Abby, being babysat by Max, who we're now introduced to, is drawing a picture of her and her friends, describing having imaginary friends. It's unclear whether she's already seeing the ghosts that she would later on in the movie, or if she genuinely just has childhood imaginary friends at this point. Mike struggles to get her to come for dinner, and they have an argument. As Mike goes to sleep, he has a dream in the form of a flashback, purposefully triggering a past memory. He looks at the poster of Nebraska on his roof and listens to a recording of nature sounds as he falls asleep, so as to trigger his memory through the sights and sounds that were around him at the time. In the dream, he is having a picnic with his family. His parents run off for a minute and he is watching his little brother Garrett. While Mike runs to grab his frisbee, Garrett gets stolen, taken away in a car. We understand why Mike was so quick to panic in the mall through understanding his traumatic memory, and can see that his past deeply affects him. As Mike chases after the car in the dream, he changes from his childhood to his present self, screaming out Garrett's name. When Mike wakes up, we see a framed photo of the family he has lost in his bedroom. The following morning, Mike is sitting with his aunt in a social worker's office as Abby draws out on the playground. Their aunt, Aunt Jan, possibly a nod to the similarly named Aunt Jen in the Silver Eyes novel, is aggressively trying to take custody over Abby, trying to take her away from her brother and threatening to take him to court on the matter. In this scene, we also first see Jan's lawyer, Doug. Mike tells the social worker that he knows that his aunt only wants Abby for the government payment and is determined to keep her with him. She recommends that he tries to find a job. Mike, desperate for a job and to try and keep Abby, calls Steve back up, asking for the job at Freddy's. As Mike drives to his first shift at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, Steve gives the history of the pizzeria to Mike over the phone, somewhat mirroring the role of phone guy in FNAF 1, 2, and 3, even using some very similar phrasing to the first phone guy. He explains that Freddy's was big in the 80s and has been shut down for years, but that the owner is a sentimental guy and won't let it get destroyed. He explains the use of the security cameras, and that the electricity is a bit iffy, a nod to the need to preserve power in the FNAF games. As Steve relays this information, Mike is driving to Freddy's and then arrives, walking in. This is where we see more of the diner, and I can just not go off enough about the set of this movie. He also sees a poster of the 4 animatronics. Allow us to see them properly for the first time. Steve wraps up his phone guy type instructions as Mike sits down and begins looking at the monitors. Steve calls the job a piece of cake, ending the call with an eerie, "I will catch you on the flip side," hopefully. Mike sits down at the many monitors, looking very much like in FNAF 1. The screens showing each room. Mike finds a tape labelled with his name on it, and he puts it on, being an old security training tape from the 80s, where ex-employee Kim explains the rules to him. This is a reference to the old security training tape that Phone Dude plays for you in FNAF 3, and it actually directly quotes this tape in the line, "A magical place for kids and grown-ups alike, where fantasy and fun come to life." In this clip, we see a man working on a bear endoskeleton. As the animatronics are introduced on screen, the screen glitches out, setting this unsettling scene. Mike opens his locker and gets a mini jump scare from a tiny Balloon Boy figure that he just turns around. Balloon Boy isn't in this movie, but his little figurine just kind of appears as a random Easter egg. At this point we see the animatronics for the first time, which look incredible, as Mike peeks behind the show stage curtain. He then basically sleeps through the whole shift, as static starts blaring through the monitor. Mike has the same flashback dream as the previous night. However, this time the dream goes on for longer. As his brother is being taken, he turns around to see 5 children, representing the 5 animatronics, as shown through pieces of costuming to symbolize each, which we will explore later. He asks them about his brother, and if they saw who had taken him, but they remain silent, staring at him before suddenly running away. Mike tries to chase after the blonde boy representing Golden Freddy, but he trips over a rock, just as he wakes up from his dream to his 6 AM stopwatch. He heads back home and sends Max home, promising he'll eventually pay her for the babysitting, and watches over Abby, who is fast asleep. We then cut to a scene at Sparky's Diner, a nod to the popular fan theory that Sparky the dog could be seen very rarely in FNAF 1, which of course turned out to be a hoax. Aunt Jan is sitting at a booth with Doug, Max, and Max's brother Jeff. At this diner, the waiter serving the group is Matt Pat, having his very talked about and famous cameo here. As the 4 sit at the diner, we find out that Jen had planted Max to search Mike's house and try to find criminal activity, but she hadn't found anything. Max and Jeff argue for Jen to pay up, but she refuses since they didn't get any evidence, while Doug panics that he shouldn't be hearing this. Together, they formulate a plan, Max and Jeff being in it for the money, to get Mike fired, breaking into Freddy's and messing the place up so he won't have a job, and therefore won't win custody over Abby. As Mike goes to leave for work, Abby demands to go with him, causing another argument between the two. He leaves when Max arrives to babysit to go to his second shift. He brings his poster of Nebraska with him, sticking it on the office wall. We're on to Mike's second night at Freddy's, where he is sleeping on the job again. As he sleeps, we see the shadow of Foxy in the hallway. Mike is having the same dream again. He turns to the 5 kids, and again the kids run away and he chases after them. He chases after the child who resembles Foxy, the kid turning around and slashing Mike with his hook. As Mike looks up, black tears are streaming out of the child's eyes, this ending the dream. He wakes up to static on all of the screens and the song Talking in Your Sleep blasting over the radios. In the background we see an It's Me Easter egg in the mirror. As Mike reboots the power, we see a flash of Foxy standing in the hall, but as he powers it back on, everything has gone back to normal. He hears static over the intercom and sees a police car and police officer at the front door, so he goes to greet her. The police officer introduces herself as Vanessa, a reference to the character Vanessa in FNAF Security Breach. However, herself and this version of Vanessa have very significant differences in lore and story arc. As the two talk, it is revealed that Mike's arm is actually bleeding in real life, to which Vanessa points out, helping him bandage it up. She asks about the Nebraska poster, and Mike ignores the question. She states that she really loved Freddy's as a kid before confronting Mike and questioning him, saying he's acting strange and suspicious. She claims that she reckons he's not gonna last, stating that this place gets to people, and that none of the security hires last. Despite this, Vanessa decides to introduce Mike to the animatronics, also casually mentioning those kids going missing, but says no more. Here we first see the animatronics performing, and it's pretty cool. They perform Talking in Your Sleep, all moving around and dancing robotically. Foxy on his separate stage to the side. The animatronics look insanely accurate and they move so smoothly. They're massive and each character is so intricately designed and accurate to the game. The animatronics suddenly stop performing and whir back into place as Vanessa asks Mike to dance, then saying, maybe some other time. This seeming to possibly be a reference to Bellora's line in Custom Night, spare me a dance for another day perhaps. Mike asks Vanessa what she was talking about in regards to the missing children, and she explains that it happened in the 80s, causing the place to shut down, still being pretty vague about the situation. She mocks Mike for not having done his homework, and realizes he doesn't have a security badge, giving him one. As Mike locks up for the night, Vanessa drives by and advises he doesn't let the place get to him. As Mike leaves Freddy's, Jeff is watching from afar, calling Max and instructing her to wait until Mike gets back and then to come over with the guys. Jeff and 2 friends, Carl and Hank, break into Freddy's to destroy the place, smashing everything up that they can find. This is where we have the first horror scene of the movie. Carl hears a noise coming from behind him and he heads towards it, as we can see Chica entering the room behind him. He opens the fridge to see the cupcake sitting there. As he turns around, the cupcake disappears. Looking behind him, he sees Chica towering over him, the cupcake in her hand. The cupcake jumps out at him, opening its mouth to attack as the scene cuts. Hank walks over as he sees the cupcake suffocating Carl, then scanning the kitchen to see Chica glaring at him as he gasps in shock. Meanwhile, Jeff goes to smash up the security cameras when he notices Hank running away, screaming on these cameras. Hank runs and hides in the storage room, quickly realizing that he's locked himself in. As he turns the light on, we can see that Bonnie is behind him and attacks, his attack being off-screen as Jeff watches Bonnie's shadow and hears Hank screaming through the door. As Bonnie exits the storage room, he enters the hallway, staring at Jeff, who sprints away to the security office, where over the phone he hears children's laughter. Over the cameras, he can see Chica and Bonnie. Chica leans down next to the vent, letting the cupcake into it, and they both stare up at the camera, the cupcake trying to attack him through the vent, a reference to the FNAF 2 gameplay. Jeff holds down the vent as the cupcake bashes against it until suddenly it stops and the security office door swings open. Jeff slowly walks out and the door locks behind him as we see Foxy come towards him to attack him, singing his little tune and then madly dashing at him. Max walks cautiously into Freddy's to look for the guys as she's been waiting in the car for a long time. When she enters, she sees the child representing Freddy from Mike's dreams. He leads her into Freddy's, calling for her to follow him as he disappears around the corner. She enters another room, noticing the disheveled parts of the aforementioned Sparky the dog Easter egg in the corner of the room. In the middle of the room, the kid speaks from inside Freddy's suit, saying "warmer" as she slowly creeps closer, the tension building. She stands on a chair to look into Freddy's mouth, but sees no child, only an endoskeleton. As she peers in, a hand reaches out, dragging her in, and Freddy chomps her straight in half, this being shown through her shadow. The scene changes with a very dramatic tone shift as we see Mike and Abby watching TV at home. Abby is frustrated with Mike and ignores him, but then finds the family court papers from Aunt Jen requesting change of custody, and she gets very upset. As they're discussing this, Vanessa shows up at Mike's house and gets annoyed at him for the break-in, assuming he'd forgot to properly lock up. He holds up his sleeping pills, suggesting this was the reason that it happened, so they decide to go on a walk so Mike can explain himself. Vanessa and Mike sit by a lake, and Mike tells the story of what happened to his brother, as he begins to explain what he is doing. He begins discussing a theory that we can't actually forget anything, and that he may remember somewhere deep down inside of him who took his brother, further explaining what he's doing with his dreams, revisiting the same memory over and over. Vanessa responds to this saying, "I know crazy, and this isn't it." Mike reveals what happened to his parents, his mother dying of sickness, and his father ending his own life after this, leaving it just Mike and Abby at home. Mike reminisces on his childhood before Garrett was taken, and this deeply affects Vanessa, who is blinking back tears. Vanessa receives a message over her radio and the two part ways, Vanessa reinforcing that Mike can't fall asleep on the job again. Obviously, Mike is unable to contact Max, so unable to find a babysitter, he decides to bring Abby to work with him this night, making clear to her that he will work and she will sleep. As they show up, the place is torn apart and completely destroyed. Abby goes to sleep as Mike tidies up the place and he notices some blood on the storage room wall. In the storage room, there is another mini Balloon Boy jump scare, the figurine seeming to be moving around. After finishing cleaning up, Mike goes to sleep again, the static on the monitor blaring. While Mike is asleep, Abby is woken up by a child whispering her name, us watching the child walk down the hall and wake Abby up from his perspective. As Abby notices Mike is sleeping, she heads out to the main stage. Freddy walks onto the stage towards her. Meanwhile, in Mike's dream, he's talking to one of the kids, this time only the blonde kid being there. He realizes and says aloud that they are the kids who disappeared. Mike begs the child to tell him who took his brother, and the blonde kid finally speaks for the first time, saying, "If we show you, what will you give us?" Mike says anything, that he will give the kids anything that they want. As the kid gets up to leave, we see that he had been drawing a rabbit in the dirt. Mike is awoken by Abby screaming. He runs into the dining room, ready to attack, wielding a chair, but finds that she's just been playing with the animatronics, who are standing up, moving around, and playing with her all on their own. She introduces them as her friends and explains they like pictures, before Mike, freaked out, convinces her that it's time to go home. As Mike puts Abby to bed at home, he sees her drawings on the table, of the 5 children in his dreams. As he looks at more and more of these drawings, he can see that they have accessories to represent each of the animatronics. The next morning, when Mike asks about the animatronics, Abby nonchalantly states, of course they're ghosts, how else could they make the robots move? Mike pulls out a drawing that Abby had done, one of Garrett being taken away in the car, the same scenario as in Mike's dream and as what happened in his childhood. When asking who told her about it, she reveals it was the boy with the blonde hair, but she wasn't told who took him. She says all they talk about is a yellow rabbit, but promises to ask for Mike. We cut to a scene of Vanessa crying and looking at the drawing of the 5 kids with the rabbit, reminiscing on her past. We hear sounds playing of children singing and laughing that eventually turn into children screaming. Interrupting her thoughts, Mike and Abby come into Freddy's for Mike's shift, Mike confronting Vanessa for already having known that the animatronics were possessed. They all decide to build a fort, to which we have an incredible sequence of the 3 characters and the animatronics putting together a fort. Vanessa and Mike walk off to find something to use as a roof, to which Mike is a little confused as to how well Vanessa knows the place and where everything is. In this room, he sees a creepy doll Springlock suit animatronic that looks like a Springlock version of Ella from the Silver Eyes novels. As he goes to touch it, Vanessa stops him and explains what Springlocks are, how the animatronics are able to be worn, but the Springlocks trigger very easily, creating a serious safety hazard. When Vanessa tries to understand why Mike brought Abby to Freddy's, He explains that he feels as if the animatronics somehow know what happened to his brother, that he thinks somehow they can find out who took him, noting that the animatronics seem to like Abby and may tell her. Vanessa strictly encourages him to drop it and let it go. As they walk back out, Abby is going to strum Bonnie's bass guitar and she gets electrocuted, but luckily is okay as Vanessa and Mike are there to take care of her. As they're headed out, Mike asks Vanessa, "What are you so afraid of?" in the storage room. "I saw your eyes. You were terrified." She replies, "You can do whatever you want with your own life, but if you ever bring Abby back here again, I will shoot you." Due to this, the following night, Mike invites Aunt Jan over to babysit. Abby misunderstands this as Mike giving her away to her aunt, and she runs away, locking herself in her bedroom, scribbling him out of all of her drawings. As Mike goes into work that day, he decides to go to sleep and trigger his dream. In his dream this time, his parents and Garrett are all sitting there together as a happy family, inviting him to join them. He's confused, but turns around to see the 5 kids standing there, the blonde boy telling him he can change what happened and can have his family back, and that in return, they want Abby. These dream versions of Garrett and his parents agree and tell him he should do it, that it will make Abby happy to be with the kids. He agrees momentarily, saying yes, but quickly changes his mind, realizing what he's done and saying no, screaming that he made a mistake. But it's too late, the children are gone. We see Foxy's feet moving in the real world, and then all of the children in Mike's dream start slashing at and attacking him, whispers coming from the trees, chanting Abby. When Mike finally wakes up, he's locked into a chair behind the dreaded Killer Freddy mask, used to stuff endoskeletons into suits. The mask is moving towards him, gears whizzing as it edges closer and closer. He manages to unscrew the hand restraints and gets out just in time, the gears shredding the metal that was behind him, sending sparks flying. As he edges backwards into the room, he sees the dead bodies of the people who had been killed earlier, Max and her brother and friends. We can also see on his back that the slashes in his dream had been real. As Mike tries to run away down the hallway, the door is jammed closed, and we hear Foxy singing his repeated tune, then seeing him at the other end of the hall. We see Foxy dashing towards Mike from Foxy's perspective, but Mike manages to get the door open, saving himself at the very last second yet again. We transition back to Abby, who's at home, where we see Golden Freddy, the blonde boy, coming to get her. We see him switching between presenting as Golden Freddy and the child. When Abby announces Freddy, he simply says, "Not Freddy." As they go to leave, Abby sees her aunt lying dead on the ground, to which the kid eerily says, "Don't worry, she's gone to sleep." They catch a taxi to Freddy's, leading to a pretty funny scene of Abby and Golden Freddy in the taxi and a very confused cab driver, played by YouTuber Corey X Kenshin. Meanwhile, Mike wakes up bandaged up, Vanessa having been taking care of him in a police outpost. He explains his dream to Vanessa and what had happened, that Abby is in danger, asking her, "What do they want with my sister?" She responds, they want to make her like them. The scene continues to switch between Abby and Mike and Vanessa. Golden Freddy just leaves Abby at the door of Freddy's, disappearing as soon as she enters, acting in character to his game counterpart that disappears and has minimal presence in the FNAF games. As we watch Abby enter Freddy's, turning on the lights and greeting the animatronics, we hear Vanessa explaining to Mike that not only the children's souls, but also the children's bodies are hidden inside the animatronics. She states, "You have to understand, the kids, they don't want to hurt anyone. It's him. He influences them somehow. He took everything from them, but they don't remember." Vanessa tells Mike that he will be coming now. He knows that Mike is looking for him. When Mike keeps asking who he is, Vanessa shows Mike a photo of her childhood self with the spring Bonnie yellow rabbit, revealing the man that killed the kids is named William Afton, and he is Vanessa's father. In the photo, Vanessa is holding Garrett's toy aeroplane. Mike is extremely angry that she knew and didn't tell him who killed his brother. He demands she tells him how he can save his sister. The scene quickly cuts to Abby, standing inside Freddy's, as the animatronics begin doing another performance of Talking in Your Sleep, before quickly cutting back to Vanessa and Mike. Vanessa offers Mike an electrocution tool, telling him it won't permanently damage them, but will stop them for a bit. She explains that she can't come with him as her dad will be there, and states, "If he's there, believe me, I won't be of any use to you." Mike zooms to Freddy's in the police car as we hear a voiceover of Vanessa explaining how to safely get in. As Mike enters Freddy's via a vent, Abby is watching the animatronics performing, walking right up to Chica on the stage. Mike gets into the main stage area through the vent, while only Freddy and Bonnie are performing on stage. When Freddy hears Mike, he jolts quickly and turns around as Mike quickly ducks behind a wall, going back to his performance when he can't see Mike. As this happens, Chica is leading Abby away to the storage room, while Mike pours water on the stage and zaps it with electricity, knocking out Bonnie and Freddy. In the storage room, Chica starts trying to put Abby in the Springlock Ella suit, Abby screaming and kicking. Mike manages to come in and save her just in time by electrocuting Chica. As they run away, we see the Cupcake's eyes light up, Mike having forgotten about it. As they're running through the hallway, the Cupcake chomps onto Mike's leg, dragging him down. He yells at Abby to go and she runs off, entering the main stage area as we hear Mike's screams. We see Foxy and his cove transition from being the kid version of Foxy into being the animatronic Foxy. The scene switching between Mike and Abby, Mike manages to kick the Cupcake off him and electrocute it, while Abby sees Foxy and hides behind a bunch of arcade machines, a reference to the Silver Eyes novels. She knocks one of the machines, making a noise, and Foxy starts heading towards her slowly, so she moves and hides from Foxy in the ball pit, a reference to the Fazbear Frights novella Into the Pit. Foxy hears this too, and starts heading towards the ball pit.
Mike walks out into the main stage area, but while trying to head to Abby is confronted by a giant spring body suit, much larger than the animatronics. He tries to electrocute him, but not being an animatronic, he laughs and easily knocks Mike across the room. As Spring Bonnie, or William Afton, heads towards Mike, Foxy heads towards Abby, but Vanessa pulls her out of the ball pit and electrocutes Foxy, coming to help out despite her father being there. She says she needs to get Abby somewhere safe so that she can help Mike. Afton towers over Mike, yelling, "This is perfect. First I killed your brother, now I kill you," kicking Mike across the room, to which he passes out. Afton calls, "Wake up, children," and all of the animatronics' eyes light up as they spring back to life. Afton is peering over Mike, holding out a knife, but Vanessa yells out from behind him, holding up a gun. Afton takes off the costume head to speak to Vanessa, revealing that William Afton is the man that went by Steve Raglan that originally gave Mike this job. He taunts her, reminding her that while she may have forgotten her loyalties, the animatronics have not. As he heads towards her and continues mocking her, she shoots at him. While Vanessa confronts her father, Abby runs in, while Mike, lying on the floor, tells Abby to draw a picture and show the animatronics what really happened with the yellow rabbit. As Abby is drawing, Afton yells at Vanessa, "You had one job, keep him in the dark and kill him if he got too close," revealing that Vanessa really did know everything the whole time. Afton chokes Vanessa, but drops her when he sees that Abby is putting the new drawing on the wall. Vanessa pulls him back, not allowing him to hurt Abby, and at this, Afton stabs his own daughter in the stomach. Mike triggers the power on and off, and we see that Abby has drawn what really happened. Afton, the yellow rabbit, murdering the 5 children. The animatronics narrow their eyes and begin walking towards Afton menacingly as Abby says, "They can see you now. They know what you did." Afton tries to belittle them, but it doesn't work as they surround him. The Cupcake jumps out and bites Afton. Just a small bite that is enough to trigger the spring locks and cause a slow and painful death. This being a reference to the death in William Afton that we see in the FNAF 3 minigames, and as canon in the novels and overall in the FNAF series, the creation of Springtrap. As he dies, he puts on the rabbit's head and quotes his catchphrase, "I always come back." The animatronics, all of their eyes now red, drag Afton away as Freddy lets out a loud beast-like scream. The place is sparking and falling apart as Mike and Abby leave, carrying Vanessa away with them.
We have a time skip, in which the doctor is telling Mike how much better Abby has been doing recently. Both Abby and Mike seem to be happy and doing well. Mike visits Vanessa, who's in a coma in the hospital. He speaks to her and thanks her for helping them in a very emotional speech. That night, as Abby and Mike eat dinner, Abby asks if they can ever visit the animatronics again. He considers it and says, "You know what, you never know what can happen," as the shot pans out through the window. The scene cuts back to a run-down and torn-apart Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, where the blonde boy, or Golden Freddy, is watching Afton, now Springtrap, wincing and groaning in pain on the floor, struggling to lift his arm. The boy shuts the door, which cuts to the credits, using the song Five Nights at Freddy's by the Living Tombstone. In the middle of the credits is one last cutscene of the tiny balloon boy getting into the taxi with the cab driver from earlier on in the movie, which is seemingly very random. It's probably because he'll be a big part of the next movie. At the very end of the credits, "Come Find Me" is spelled out in the distorted voice used to spell out words in the FNAF 2 minigames, this seeming to allude to the movie's sequel. The first movie being based off the animatronics and location of the first game, meaning the second will probably be based off the second game. So I honestly really enjoyed watching this movie. It's received very mixed reviews and opinions, but as a FNAF fan, I enjoyed watching it a lot, and now I have multiple times. This being said, my opinion on this movie is definitely biased in being a fan of the franchise, and I don't think those who aren't a fan of the series would enjoy it as much. There are a lot of Easter eggs and references that really make up a lot of what is so enjoyable about watching the movie. It also had to remain child-friendly, having a PG rating, so it wasn't as scary as it could have been, although I don't think that made it less enjoyable. A lot of the gore was still pretty intense, and tension was built over the course of the movie, causing it to feel pretty creepy. The storyline is easy enough to follow and has an interesting mix of existing FNAF lore plot points and further develops new storylines. My favourite aspects of the film were the animatronics and the set. Just seeing the world and the games coming to life in such interesting, realistic ways was super cool. Those are my general thoughts about the movie, but before we wrap this video up, I'm going to further break down some specific elements. So the plot, as just summarised, is pretty easy to follow. It's different to previously established lore and stories within the franchise, however has very similar themes, and even shares some characters of Mike Schmidt, the changed characterization of Vanessa, of course the FNAF 1 animatronics, and the story's ongoing primary antagonist, William Afton. There are newly introduced characters of Garrett, Abby, Max, and their related family members and other minor characters. Just like with the books, the movie is in an alternate timeline to the games, so it doesn't follow the exact same lore or fit perfectly together with previously established game lore elements. Still, the basic story is the same as the lore of FNAF 1. 5 children were stolen and stuffed into the animatronics by William Afton, who dressed up in a Spring Bonnie suit to gain the children's trust. The plot of the movie was pretty entertaining. Although the plot twist at the end was very predictable and easy to guess, the conclusion was still satisfying, while also setting up for and leaving room for a sequel. The animatronics are absolutely the highlight of this movie for me. I feel like this was so important to get right because the face of the FNAF brand and at the core of the games and the entire franchise are these animatronic characters. As such, they are a vital and core part of this movie. The designs of these animatronics are insanely accurate. Freddy wears a black top hat and bow tie and holds an uncomfortable grin with his jaw agape, revealing a row of bottom teeth. Bonnie is a big blue rabbit with a red bow tie and disconnected ears that move and wiggle around. Chica is a massive chicken with animated angry eyebrows, purple light-up eyes, her dirty let's eat bib, and a large orange beak. She holds the cupcake that is also an animatronic with light-up purple eyes and a massive mouth. Foxy is much more disheveled and torn apart. He's an orange pirate fox who seems to wheel around and has a black eye patch, a hook on one arm, and unattached moving pointy ears. Golden Freddy only appears for one short scene, being a nod to his very rare appearance in the first FNAF game, but appears as a much more torn apart, yellow version of Freddy. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Golden Freddy were actually all played by stunt actors wearing the suits, allowing the animatronics to interact with the characters more and to feel and seem more lifelike. At the same time, the actors still had to make sure to move robotically enough to give a convincing performance. It comes across super effectively and makes for an incredible performance. I'd highly recommend checking out this interview of the stunt actors by Dorco. Foxy, on the other hand, as well as the cupcake, are fully animatronic robots, Foxy having a puppeteer. The time, number of people, and effort put into the animatronics absolutely really shows. The designs are perfect and accurate to a T. They move around extremely convincingly and have such lovable and cool characters, as well as being pretty scary when they attack. Spring Bonnie, who becomes the suit for Springtrap, is not exactly an animatronic in this movie, being a massive Springlock suit that William Afton wears. This costume is larger than the animatronics, and it's yellow with a massive purple bow tie and creepy open mouth and row of teeth. The Springlocks in the Spring Bonnie suit get triggered at the end of the movie, causing William Afton to be severed and killed, turning him into Springtrap. This massive towering suit with an extremely creepy face definitely looks like what will become Springtrap and is, for sure, haunting. The The Balloon Boy figurine is a recurring Easter egg throughout the film. However, Balloon Boy is not yet an animatronic, and this may be a hint for his appearance in future films. The 5 main animatronics are possessed by 5 of William Afton's child victims, and we see these children in Mike's dreams and when they're interacting with Abby, who sees the animatronics as their child selves. The Golden Freddy child is played by Grant Feely, the Freddy child is played by Liam Henricks, the Foxy child is played by Asher Colton Spence, the Chica child is played by Jophiel Love, and the Bonnie child is played by David Huston Doty. These children's characters' identities are alluded to from their very first appearance in Mike's dream through the use of costuming. Freddy wearing a hat, Foxy having a hook on his hand and wearing orange, Bonnie wearing rabbit ears, and Chica wearing yellow. Golden Freddy doesn't have any costuming that alludes to his character, however he's often referred to as the Blonde Boy, and this may be intended to connect with the idea of golden or blonde hair and Golden Freddy. The kids in the movie aren't given names, so many of the fans have called them by the names of the children who possess each animatronic in the games. Golden Freddy being possessed by Cassidy, Freddy by Gabriel, Bonnie by Jeremy, Chica by Susie, and Foxy by Fritz. However, of course, this could be subject to change in a sequel due to the game and movie timelines being different. There hasn't been any clear explanation as to who possesses the cupcake and what the deal is with that. The setting and set design of this film, like the animatronics, is so essential and vital to making a movie based off such a visual series. Based off the FNAF 1 restaurant, the set design is incredible and extremely accurate to the layout of the FNAF 1 game. The security office is accurate all the way down to the tiny details like the Celebrate poster. The vent in the wall is the only major difference, as this element of the office isn't introduced until the second game. The hallway with the storage unit sticking out from one side is exactly as it is in FNAF 1, and Bonnie's kill in that room nods to his prevalence of being in that room in the first game. The main dining area is designed differently in the game, but is designed with even more detail. Stained glass faces of the animatronics on the backs of the seats around cool booths. The dining area contains a prize corner, which is another element that isn't actually added until FNAF 2, but looks super cool within the movie, holding actual FNAF merch. The walls, just as in the game, are covered in children's drawings. The main stage looks incredible and houses 3 animatronics, with Foxy on a separate stage just to the side rather than in his separate room in Pirate's Cove like in the game. The back storage room is filled with bits and bobs and mess just as we see in the game, and every wall, carpet and corner has been designed based either off FNAF 1 or minor elements taken from other FNAF games. All in all, the set looks amazing, and while we of course can't see the actual layout around movie magic, it appears to be laid out just as Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is. So I honestly didn't love the characters within this movie. I think there were lots of existing characters within the FNAF franchise that could have been played with rather than introducing new ones, but I think pretty much all of the acting was really good. Anyways, here are all of the human characters introduced in the order that we see them in the movie, and laid out for you on my little character chart to show you the relationships between them. The first character we see in the opening cutscene is the old Freddy's security guard, played by Ryan Renicki. He is only present at the very beginning of the movie, being hunted down by the animatronics, trying to keep them out, when they capture him and kill him by putting him into the endoskeleton stuffing mask. He is representative of FNAF 1's phone guy, who is hunted down and killed by the animatronics on the 4th night of the game. As the plot of the story begins, we are introduced to our protagonist, Mike Schmidt, named after the character you play as in FNAF 1, and played by Josh Hutcherson. Mike is a deeply traumatized man struggling to accept the loss of his brother who was stolen when he was a kid. When he starts working at Freddy's, he realizes the connection between this place and his brother's disappearance, and begins working tirelessly, to his own detriment, to figure out who the man that took him was. Abby Schmidt is Mike's little sister, played by Piper Rubio. She's a quiet and artistic kid who is always drawing and has many imaginary friends. It's unclear as to whether she's always seen the ghost children throughout the movie, or if her imaginary friends allowed her to find it less strange when she started seeing the ghost children. Jeremiah, played by Theodis Crane, is a very minor character at the beginning of the movie as a co-worker and friend of Mike Schmidt at the mall, working a security job. We don't see him again after Mike loses his job on the first shift that we see. William Afton is played by Matthew Lillard, and poses himself at the beginning of the movie as Steve Raglan, a career counselor. He gets Mike Schmidt a job at Freddy's, noticing his surname and realizing Mike is the brother of the boy that he stole, Garrett. As Mike figures out what's going on at Freddy's, William comes after him and tries to kill him, Max is played by Kat Connor Sterling. She plays Abby's babysitter, and it's revealed that she's being paid by Aunt Jan to try and find anything illegal in Mike's home, and then to try and get him fired from Freddy's. When venturing into Freddy's, Max is murdered. Garrett Schmidt is played by Lucas Grant, and is Mike's little brother who was stolen when he was younger. He is only seen in Mike's dreams, which are a recollection of his memories of him being taken. In these dreams and flashbacks, we also see Mike's parents, who aren't given names. His mother, played by Jessica Blackmore, and his father, played by Garrett Hines. They both tragically die before the events of the film. Mike and Abby's aunt, Aunt Jan, is played by Mary Stuart Masterton. She is trying to take custody of Abby from the beginning of the movie, going so far as to use illegal means so that Mike will lose custody, or his job, and therefore lose custody. She's portrayed as a minor villain in the movie and ends up being killed by Golden Freddy in the middle, having very little character development throughout. Aunt Jan is often seen with her lawyer Doug, played by Michael P. Sullivan, who is trying to help her win the case of getting custody over Abby. Dr. Lillian, played by Tadsei Young, is Abby's doctor and is seen recurrently throughout the movie. Kim, played by Bailey Winston, is an old Freddy Fazbear's employee who is seen in the instructional security tapes that Mike watches. Max's brother Jeff is played by David Lind, and is seen around his two friends Hank, played by Christian Stokes, and Carl, played by Joseph Poliquin. These three are the first to be attacked and murdered by the animatronics when they break in and destroy Freddy's. Carl's name might be a reference to the Cupcake's commonly known fan name of Carl, which is alluded to in this character being attacked by the Cupcake. In the first of two major YouTuber cameos, MatPat plays Ness, a waiter at the diner, when Aunt Jane, Max, her brother, and Doug are sitting there. Vanessa, played by Elizabeth Lale, is a character loosely based off the security guard Vanessa in FNAF Security Breach. In this movie, the character is revealed to be the daughter of William Afton, which allude to the theories surrounding the game's character being the daughter of the series villain. This character's relation in the movie doesn't confirm or deny this theory either way due to it being an alternate timeline, but simply nods to this ongoing theory. The movie's Vanessa begins quite reserved and mysterious, dropping clues of what's really going on throughout the movie and alluding to her deeper connection to Freddy's. As it is revealed that she is the daughter of William Afton and that she was meant to be helping him, she entirely redeems herself, standing up against her father and being willing to sacrifice herself for Mike and Abby. I love this character and her mysterious arc leading into making her a hero. The taxi driver, played by Corey X. Kenshin, is the second major YouTuber cameo in the movie, and is seen both when Abby and Golden Freddy get a taxi to Freddy's, and in a credits cutscene where he sees the balloon boy. The soundtrack of this movie is super cool, with a bunch of songs written specifically for the film, as well as a great soundtrack of backing music and even a full animatronic cover of Talking in Your Sleep by The Romantics. The music is honestly a real highlight of the movie. It's used extremely effectively to build tension, relief, convey great sadness and joy. All in all, I think the music was done pretty perfectly. That's about it for my review of the FNAF movie. I would absolutely recommend it for FNAF fans, and would still recommend it as a pretty fun watch for anyone else. There are some problems with the movie, but overall it's an easy watch and enjoyable film. That is it for this video. I'm sorry that it took so long to get out, but let me know if I missed anything in the comments. Goodbye.